Hi everyone, this is Sam with Wine News in 5. Today I'll discuss two reports on the benefits of moderate drinking, both released within the last 3 days, 86 new UGAs in Alto Adige, the effect of kokumi, oligopeptides in sparkling wines, and the Gérard Basset Foundation's latest grantees. First up, two positive reports in the last 3 days on the benefits of moderate drinking. Happy holidays! On December 17th, the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine, NASEM, in the US released a report on the relationship between alcohol consumption and 8 health outcomes, including all-cause mortality, weight, cancer, cardiovascular disease, and neurocognition. The report was commissioned by US Congress in 2023 to assess third-party research to inform the 2025 to 2030 US dietary guidelines. Before I delve into outcomes, I want to clarify a couple things. This report eliminated any studies that used a comparison group which combined people who had never been drinkers with people who do not currently drink but have in the past. They did this to avoid abstainer bias, caused by past drinkers abstaining because they've had health problems, which would make it seem like the abstainer group was less healthy. The report also eliminated any study older than 2010. The report classifies moderate alcohol consumption as 2 drinks a day for men and 1 drink a day for women. Finally, the committee reviewing the studies indicates either a low or a moderate level of certainty in their findings. NASEM's summary reads, "None of the report's conclusions reached a high level of certainty, which is unlikely without a randomized controlled trial to include in the systemic review. For some health outcomes, the committee determined no conclusion could be drawn." So, what were the findings? With regard to all-cause mortality, meaning the total number of deaths in a population due to any cause, the report concludes with moderate certainty that compared with never consuming alcohol, moderate alcohol consumption is associated with lower all-cause mortality. With regard to cancer, the report concludes with moderate certainty that moderate alcohol consumption increases women's risk of breast cancer. Moderate consumption versus low consumption was also shown with low certainty to increase risk of colon cancer. However, when comparing moderate consumption with lifelong abstinence, no conclusion could be drawn. The committee was also unable to find associations between moderate alcohol consumption and oral cavity, pharyngeal, esophageal, or laryngeal cancers. With regard to cardiovascular disease, the report concluded with moderate certainty that the risk of cardiovascular mortality in both men and women was lowered in moderate drinkers compared with lifelong abstainers. Finally, with regard to weight change and to neurocognition, no conclusions could be drawn. This is all decent news, though women who like their nightly glass of wine shouldn't be skipping any recommended breast exams. The next study, published by the European Health Journal on December 18th, starts with the premise that moderate wine consumption is associated with lower risk of cardiovascular disease in older populations, but that studies that rely on participants self-reporting how much they drink are prone to measurement error. To mitigate this, the study takes 1,232 people who are participating in a study on effects of the Mediterranean diet, then asks them how much wine they consume, and then takes urine samples to measure for tartaric acid, which is the main acid in grapes. Participants are then followed for 4 to 5 years. Light to moderate wine consumption, which in this study is defined as half to 1 glass of wine per day, is shown to reduce the risk of a cardiovascular event by 50%. It is important to note that all of the people involved were following a Mediterranean diet, living in a Mediterranean country, and that the mean age in the study was 68 years old. A press release from the European Society for Cardiology quotes lead researcher Professor Ramon Ustrich, saying, "By measuring tartaric acid in the urine alongside food and drink questionnaires, we've been able to make a more accurate measurement of wine consumption. We found a much greater protective effect of wine than observed in other studies. A reduction in risk of 50% is much higher than can be achieved with some drugs, such as statins." On to new UGA classifications in Alto Adige. On December 19th, the Consorzio Alto Adige Wines announced that starting with the 2024 vintage, they'd be recognizing 86 Unità Geografiche Aggiuntive, or UGAs. In essence, a UGA is a legally recognized area, not a subzone, those have different requirements, within a DOC or DOCG. A few examples of existing UGAs would be Asili and Barbaresco, Canubi and Barolo, or Gaiole and Chianti Classico. To determine the boundaries of the UGAs in Alto Adige, the Consortio used soil type, climate, elevation, slope inclination, sun exposure, rainfall, and historical importance. Each UGA also has specifications as to what grapes may be used, and allowed yields are 25% lower than the requirements for the larger DOC. I'll include a map of the new UGAs in the transcript of this newscast. On to the kokumi effect in sparkling wines. I'd never heard of kokumi until this week, but apparently it's a Japanese word for rich taste and sits alongside sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami. But rather than being a flavor itself, it indicates a sensation of textural richness and fullness that enhances other flavors. Research in the last few years has focused on its presence in cheese, yeast extracts, beans, garlic, onions, beer, and now wine. On November 14th, the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry published a study on sparkling wines from Trento DOC in Italy, and the study, which appeared on the website of the American Chemical Society on December 12th, analyzed Trento DOC wines across 5 vintages and found 50 oligopeptides, a class of proteins, that could be responsible for a kokumi effect in the wines. The research team narrowed this to 11 and finally pinpointed glyval, a dipeptide formed from the amino acids glycine and valine, as the most likely kokumi compound through using tasting experts to prove that the compound enhanced flavors in wine. It would be interesting to see if this research would hold when applied to other traditional method sparkling wines, such as champagne, if the type of yeast used for primary or secondary fermentation matters, or if glyval is present in tank method wines such as Prosecco. On to the Gérard Basset Foundation's latest grantees. On December 9th, the Gérard Basset Foundation, which is a charitable foundation focused on providing funding for education and professional development for people in the drinks trade, announced grants to 6 organizations which facilitate education and mentorship. Inocultura in Brazil, the Institute of Cape Wine Masters in South Africa, Drinklusive in the UK, and the Glancy Wine Education Foundation, Tales of the Cocktail Foundation, and Women of the Vine and Spirits Foundation in the US. Thank you to GBF and to all of the grantees for supporting our industry, and a personal thank you to the Women of the Vine and Spirits Foundation who have helped me to fund my education with the Institute of Masters of Wine. That's all for this episode of the Wine News. Next week is Christmas, so I won't see you again until January 3rd. If you enjoy this newscast and you're looking for a last-minute gift for a wine lover in your life, please consider gifting a subscription to jancesrobinson.com. And if you have breaking news in your area, please email news@jancesrobinson.com. Thanks.